Hello, hello, hello. What ho? Oh, it could be noise canceling. I was wondering why my recording was so clear. 'Cause I wanted to make sure that my headphones were working on the last thing that I just got done riffing about, and I was like, man, this sounds really good. But then I was thinking after, like, can you hear the traffic right now, or is it canceling out? So. Anywho, skidoo. I'm your host, Travis Finley. This is the second upload. Whenever I have these amusing thoughts, I'm going to try to do this because this stuff needs to get out, and I want your participation. I want you to contribute your thoughts and your reactions and your understanding and your knowledge in any of these topics that come up, whatever they might be. But before I forget where I was going, the last time I forgot where I was going. We are so unfortunate as a society because we don't have the privilege of starting from scratch. All of the things that we have are the result of what other people have done in the past with their knowledge, be it the wheel or be it the cylinder for a 6-shooter. Hey, she's not watching where she's going. She was looking to the left and I was walking in front of her and she was creeping out. So the first time I experienced this concept was when I was in seminary and I had to write a paper on the nature of Jesus Christ, which is Christology. Christology, the study of Christ, the study of what you think is Christ. But so Arius was considered a heretic in the 5th century because of his heretical views, and the word heretic comes from, I think it is herao. It's either heretao or herao, but I think it's heretao because heretic. Anyway, the word is a verb in Greek, and it means to choose. Heretic means to choose. And just like that good old knight, right, in the Last Crusade, choose wisely, right? So Arius, obviously, due to the drawing of straws, became the odd man out and the minority, and he was bitch slapped by Athanasius, allegedly, and condemned because of his view. And basically, in the 5th century, was the solidification of what had been an expression throughout all of the African church, because that's mainly the area of the expansion of the gospel. In that early part of that history, you've got the Ethiopian church, you've got all of those historical churches that established what their little group of believers believed. So then when you have an opposing view, what do? You got to make the majority so big that it either swallows up the minority and they become the converted or the unwilling converts, or as it expands, it just pushes them farther and farther away. I have no idea what I'm talking about right now. I'm just like totally spewing whatever's in my head, so take it for what it's worth. Anyway, I realized that my paper. So this is what Arius said. There was a time when the sun was not. There was a time when the sun was not, because Arius believed that the Son, God the Son, the second person of the Trinity, was a created and therefore inferior power. So there was a time when that inferior power was created. There was a time when he came into existence. Therefore, there was a time when he did not exist. So that's what Arius taught. And so I decided to do a play on the concept. And what I did was I took it into the New Testament, and instead of saying Christ, or instead of saying the Son, there was a time when the Son was not, I said there was a time when Jesus was not. Because I wanted to focus on the doctrine of the hypostatic union, which is that perfect union, 100% God, 100% man. And so when I chose my play on words, the Son, right, had always existed. He was the divine second person of the Trinity. So he always existed, but he wasn't always Jesus, right? He wasn't before the Immaculate Conception, before Mary had 13.31 hours of labor, right? Jesus didn't exist. And that's true. So that was my play on the concept. And I didn't think my professor understood that that's what I was going for, or I didn't write the paper well enough. But anyway, it wasn't a highly graded paper, but it was a good concept nonetheless. My point is that as I was doing that research, I was thinking, man, these guys had to iron all this stuff out from scratch, right? These guys were the original thinkers on these things, and they had to iron out these bumps and creases and whatnot. And we're told this is the end of, or this is the result of this history, and here you go. So we can participate in like driving a car, but like not too many kids today know what a carburetor is for, or know what what's that, catalytic converter is, right? So they just drive the car and fill it full of gas, and hopefully remember to change the oil and put windshield and transmission fluid, whatever. Like even some of that's over their head. Okay, what am I saying? I'm saying that all of these ancient cultures had so much time to watch nature, to watch the sky, to watch the trees and the birds and the bees, and Adam and Eve over there can't keep their hands off each other. But they tell these stories, they tell these myths about Pandora and Prometheus and Zeus and Athena that are about nature. And we don't do that. We don't create, because there's this monolithic truth out there called science, and we know why the grass grows, and we know why the carbon dioxide and nitrogen and hydrogen and everything else, right? We know all this stuff, so we don't need to make up stories. There's just this. And I think that is an intentional move on the powers that be. And the powers that be are those powers that be ruling over us in every area, socially, theologically, or ecclesiastically, but governmentally first and foremost, right? The powers that be are those who have the power to tell us either what to do or what to believe, right? We saw in the past 3 years that there was a strong pushback to those who were questioning the science, right? How dare you question the white coats? How dare you question? And so, yeah. So I'm just trying to think through the fact that these stories that we have been told from youth, because I remember actually getting books on Greek mythology when I was in middle school, but I didn't understand it, right? I didn't know why they created these stories, and when I did hear why they created them, it was all because, well, they were primitive and they were not as knowledgeable as the rest of us, and so they made up these stories for things that they can't explain. But now science can explain everything. But these stories were first about, floods or lightning strikes or droughts, you know, the Milky Way and souls and stardust and all this kind of stuff, right? I mean, we just don't have a story. I don't think you have a story unless you're like a strong line of Aboriginal blood somewhere. You know, you've got no. Oh yeah, Mammy and Pappy Finley came over from Ireland back in the day. You know, whatever. But so, what are your thoughts on history? What are your thoughts on science? You know, in terms of could science ever backpedal and say, oops, we were wrong? Because the thing that I've seen is science just massages, right? I was listening to a lecture or a conversation with nuts. Can't remember his name. He's British, and he did Robert Rupia or something like that. He's a spiritualist, but he's like really smart, right? So anyway, these two guys are talking back and forth, and he's talking about the scientist and the metaphysicist, right? The scientist and the metaphysicist. The scientist was saying that space-time is a thing of the past. I have to rewrite a song, by the way. Space-time is a thing of the past, right? It's an archaic, arcane, obtuse way of thinking about reality. We know so much more about reality today than even Newton did, right? So just as Newton was superseded by Einstein, Einstein's now been superseded by quantum mechanics. And so the bending of space-time is no longer what science thinks is happening. And yet, according to this guy, that's like 1% of the scientists that even know that the tides are changing. This guy said something like he was at a conference and somebody did a presentation and nobody knew what he was talking about. And it's a published paper, peer-reviewed, published. So the science doesn't even know what the Smurf science... Anyway, my question is to you. Is it possible in your mind that science will actually, or can actually, backpedal and not massage, but admit errancy, fallibility, and then say, we have to start over again? I think that there is a reality in our scientific world where that is an expression that absolutely is the case, and it'll be interesting, and I've got research for it. But that's another time, another place. I hope this made sense. That we are the beneficiaries, right? It's a good thing that people have experience to teach us. But at the same time, doing something yourself is a lot more rewarding because it's an internalization of that which is external to you, and you're able to use your own faculties to draw conclusions and hopefully, be able to offer up a remedy to a malady that you might see in your own culture's story, right? That's why the stories might change, because their science was growing and changing and improving. That's an interesting thought. I'm hoping to share more interesting thoughts. I have interesting thoughts that are interesting to me. I hope they're interesting to you. This has been another what should I call this channel? If I don't remember what my previous channel was, I'll have to come up with a new one. But I don't know, I should just call it by my name. I guess I could just do it. Or Viejos. I want to do an alliteration. Or, I guess, would I do it in all Spanish? Would I just do, how would I do, like, the musings of an old man, right? So whatever the musings are in Spanish, Viejo is the compliment. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'm an old man, 51 in 29 days. Crazy. It's crazy. All right. This has been another exciting adventure of the unnamed channel. That's interesting. Until next time.